All right, so the comment we made at the very end of the last video is kind of a big deal. We were saying that, of course, p hat's not exactly right, but it should be close. So that's what we're really doing for the rest of this chapter, is how close is close. So this, for example, we want to construct and interpret a confidence interval for the population proportion. So what you do, and what I'm about to teach you here really applies for the rest of the chapter. You have a point estimate and you add on and subtract away a margin of error, and it gives you kind of a range where you think it's going to fall. So, for example, we consider our bean example. Think of your scoop as a poll of the beans. From this poll, a statistician would say that we estimate 25% of the beans are in the box are red, plus or minus 7.7 percentage points, with 95% confidence. We'll figure out what these crazy numbers mean in a couple pages, right? So where those came from, we'll work on later. But suffice to say that this is totally the kind of thing that gets put out in the news all the time. They'll say things like, the president has a 42% approval rating, and then the margin it'll say plus or minus 3%, And then they usually don't bother telling you the confidence level. It's usually hidden on their website somewhere, but in general, it's 95. All right, so let's start with this. What's the point estimate? Oops, and I wrote this in the last video I made, but then that video got deleted. Don't ask me. But it said the point estimate is the single best guess for what P is. That's what a point estimate is. So that would be, of course, P hat, right? So, oopsie, I lost it. P hat, there we go, P hat, which was equal to 0.25, which is 25%. Okay? Either one, 0.25, 25%, whatever you want to use. Okay, what's the margin of error? Well, the error is 7.7%. Well, here, let me do it this way. 0.077, which would be 7.7%, because they told you so. They say it's plus or minus 7.7%. That's margin of error. Margin of error is the plus minus, if you will. All right, so what confidence interval are they giving you? Well, let's see. You could take 25 minus 7.7 and get 17.3. Or you could take 25 plus 7.7 and get 32.7, which means the confidence interval itself is 17.3, 32.7. All right, draw a picture of this interval. Well, I already drew it over here. There it is. Let's bring it in and let's take a look. Okay, so in the center, first of all, let's be clear. The interval is literally a continuous interval that starts at the low number and ends up at the high number. And I've highlighted it here with this orange line. It starts over here at 17.3. It gets to over here at 32.7. Technically, closed dots on either end. Okay, so that altogether is the interval. Now, the interval has a width, namely the distance between 17.3 and 32.7. It has a halfway spot, which is the best guess you have, p hat, which was this p hat right here, 25%. And then it has an error. Now, the error is the distance from that center to the edge, or this center to the other edge. Now, notice there's two of them, because there's one on the left and there's one on the right. And together, they give you the width of the interval altogether. So another way to think about a margin of error is that it's half the width of the interval. All right? So there we go. Point estimate labeled, error labeled. Notice the confidence interval is labeled, and it's every single number from 17.3 all the way up to and including 32.7. Oh, I just answered this. What is the relationship between the margin of error and the width of the interval? The margin of error is equal to half the width of the interval. I can't remember if that's the start of the next page or not. So let me bring it here. The level of confidence represents the expected proportion of intervals that will contain the parameter. Now notice it says 1 minus alpha. See that? That's the same alpha we saw in chapter 7 and chapter 8. So if we look at above, what was the confidence interval? Well, or confidence level, they tell us right here. It's 95% confidence. So that's the answer to that question. And if that's the case, then what's alpha? Well, that means alpha is the complement. It's 1 minus alpha, which would be 0.05. There you go. See you next time.